Now, when it comes to Drake and Kendrick Lamar, well, if you are ready to see how the celebration and the all-time failure of Cupcake Drake is continuing to happen, and will witness this after seeing how Kendrick Lamar is moving right now and seeing how happy he is, well, even more than ever, Drake and all of the stans who call themselves OVO are losing it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And now really, as Drake is sad, the stans are mad, and we are all glad. Leave a like so everybody can see how the worst part of hip-hop and the bottom of the barrel is finally being removed and sorted out. And now with that said, this entire moment of Drake and his Not Like Us lawsuit being dismissed and laughed out of court, it's really showing us so much for just the landscape of hip-hop and where things are falling together as a whole. And while it is starting to seem like we are going to find out how a lot more rappers and people within the industry and within the hip-hop world have really felt about this and how the moves and precedent that Drake was trying to set, maybe even already stopped them from doing what they wanted to and releasing the music that they had in mind. In the meantime of finding out more and really seeing what this has done to the rap world, aside from give us more trash. At the center of this, of course, are the two guys who engaged in a beef, and one had one of the biggest fall loss of all time from it, and one had one of the biggest runs we have ever seen during it. And of course, none other than Drake and Kendrick Lamar. And now, while Drake is already going mad and he's posting Tupac and birthday shoutouts to try and diss or act like he still has something going, even though we know there's no button and there's no trick and we know the grift is failed, and well, Drake, you're a little I can't say that. Hold up, let me slow down. But you know what I'm saying. Drake just is out of options and has nothing. Well, with that and with the OVO fanbase who is now doing some of the most sad and shameful stuff I have ever seen to discredit Kendrick Lamar, which we will look at that during this and just laugh about it later. Well, speaking of Kendrick Lamar, the man himself has showed that he is still active and well in a way has indirectly reacted to everything going on. And what I'm going to say when we look at what Kendrick did, look at the response, and look at how it's just creating a bigger and bigger situation in every sense of the word is that, and I think it's never been more evident, but we have definitely been able to see it here and there, maybe in little parts of the Super Bowl halftime show and also when he popped out with Cardig on I Am Music. Kendrick Lamar, if you haven't noticed, and there are other rappers and people around him who have actually echoed and said this very same thing, despite what you would maybe think, is one of the funniest people out there and really does have a sense of humor that I think you do have to be paying attention to really understand what he is doing and how he is just playing into things. But exactly when you do that, and I mean we're hip-hop fans, it makes sense that we're looking more into things than we probably always should be. It is just rewarding. And what I mean by that is while Kendrick Lamar is never going to be the guy who's going to come out and address these things directly or do something that would give a loser like Drake too much attention, because as Kendrick has clearly learned kind of in the second half of this beef, you could say the best way to address and continue to make sure that Drake never gets any foot up in this entire thing is just to make chess moves against him and maybe even indirectly mention his presence or things he's doing. But never actually give somebody like Cupcake who is chasing clout to levels like we have never been able to even fathom just the light of day of saying his name and giving him a potential boost, because that's all he really wants, and he really is like a desperate clout chaser in that sense, which is why I've always said historically Drake is always more like a Jake Paul or somebody like that than he ever will be a Kendrick Lamar or any respected MC. But so once again, just like we have seen when Kendrick has been coming out to shows and maybe showing more energy or just creating a bigger performance and bigger spectacle in a moment like Toronto, or after Drake tried to put more of his family in this lawsuit, or after Drake did whatever other clown action that you could find in the run of all of them. Kendrick just came out at the right time and knew how to get the exact right reaction from everybody. And how Kendrick did this was by coming out and just being a genuine human and a good guy and never doing any of the clown stuff, which once again you just got to give him all the credit for that, because even now while Kendrick could come out and honestly speak more directly about this because it is seemingly all over, at least for now, and I mean Drake has lost just more and more, still Kendrick is just never going to be this guy, and what I think is just speaking so much volume about where we are. That is what he is doing, which has been highlighted by now after being off of the tour and now after this lawsuit being dismissed. Kendrick is just outside in the places where he was just running shows at, and the guys just doing side quests and having a great time, which we saw this first when he was at a soccer game and he was watching the match and he had headphones on and maybe he was listening to unreleased music or something that he's planning on dropping. And as Kendrick was there, and of course, it's a big deal to see somebody, especially of Kendrick's nature, who is usually so out of the limelight in a place like that. I mean, just to see how unbothered Kendrick was by anything, and just to see him enjoying the moment and the present. I do think that that is who Kendrick Lamar is, as this is seemingly how he stays in check and never just embarrasses himself in an industry filled with losers and crashes. But still with this, seeing him this unbothered after everything going on and after what happened with Drake, it didn't make the OVO stans happy. But making things even worse as this happened directly after everything with Drake came down and we all heard the news. Well, Kendrick Lamar's side quest run continued. And what we saw from him here was that he went to a boxing gym in Chile. And just with Kendrick posing, having fun and working out. I mean, the fact that we are talking about a rapper doing this and just making an appearance like this in this time, and well, the Drake stans are getting livid about it and they are doing weirder and weirder things to try and spite him than ever. Well, listen. You see everything you need to know here, which really though for Kendrick Lamar, if we break it down, all comes down to the fact that obviously Kendrick has to know what is going on with this Not Like Us case and how Drake has finally just been embarrassed in the boardrooms after being embarrassed in every other circle already. And with that, when you kind of see the way the two are moving, not just in terms of this case and everything now going on to Drake and how we are seeing kind of the future of his team and the label navigate what they're going to do following this, but from that to again seeing Drake sadly posting a birthday shout-out where he is somehow trying to act like having Tupac in the back is going to lead to another disc or another win. I mean, just to see that Drake is still in the cosmics and he has not gotten over a single thing. Well, just to counter this with Kendrick living his best life and having fun and just being a genuine and cool dude. This is why the Drake stans are mad. And this is why for people who discipline themselves by crashes who move in some of the lamest ways we have ever seen, can't just fathom the fact that a guy is moving both so professionally and just so responsibly to really just stay in check in an industry like the one they are all in. And so really for Kendrick Lamar to just see him smiling and having fun in the same time met so many other people in rapper are in shambles, and at the end of the day this is all over a record of his and he has been at the center of this of course because he is on the other side of Drake in this whole thing. It really does speak volumes to see how mad the Drake stans are. And honestly, with what they're doing right now to try and spike Kendrick, it's gotten to a point where it has really never been sadder. Because from trying to edit these weird and misleading photos of Kendrick where he's taking mirror selfies and he looks very strange and then, you know, people flip it right back on them and show that Drake has actually taken photos that look like these. And you know, I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to give out any clout because the Drake stans don't even deserve the decency to be mentioned anymore. But just with the complete disarray that they are in, which from leading people in the OVO community who we know actually talk to higher level people within Drake's circle to just everything else, these guys are showing that they are some of the biggest losers we have ever seen. And of course, we've known that. But to see it in a time of loss and really something that is going to determine so much going forward in terms of the verdict of this whole thing, it really does speak volumes. Then what I think we really need to pull away from this and just understand about Kendrick Lamar and just the two sides in rap and what the best things about this are in general is just from Kendrick Lamar the absolute masterclass he has put on in terms of just navigating this thing with the utmost power and leverage at all points. And what I just mean by that is that in this game where the more emotion you show and the more disheveled and disillusioned you are, it just looks worse for everybody. And from the fans to the label, everybody has seen somebody like Drake and just lost more and more confidence in him. For Kendrick Lamar from so many different angles and perspectives. This guy has navigated this conflict and this entire era. Both if you want to look at it in terms of the controversy of the lawsuit and the potential backlash, but then also in terms of being an artist or a creative in any level and navigating, especially in this complicated era that we are in right now where everything is kind of flipped and more people are focused on things that are more like influencer games than the actual craft of what you're doing. Kendrick Lamar has put on a masterclass of just how to stay pure and professional at what you're doing and keep things to the highest level possible in terms of what you're offering to everybody as a whole and what you're doing to just respect yourself and your own being within that. And what I mean by that is really if you want to go from the lawsuit on, but we can go all the way back to March of 2024. Kendrick has genuinely put on a masterclass. I mean, let's just think about this. The guy has not spoken once out of pocket and any time we have heard from him. It's been in something that is directly building on the art and telling the story of the greatest rap run of all time as just to communicate at the level he has, which it's only been through the music, and then there's been some interviews and announcements here and there, and then of course there was the tour and everything that came with that. No matter what you want to see with Kendrick Lamar compared to the like thousands of moments that Drake has created which are all just so disheveled and they have no meaning and they ultimately just show a man spiraling and spiraling more in an awful downfall. Everything for Kendrick has weaved seemingly and perfectly together as it's just an extension of the art and the very message he told us he was trying to set out when he dropped like that, and that he has only continued to win it further and further as everything has went on. And you know, for Kendrick, despite everything he has been put in, he has handled this in the most perfect way possible. Because really, with how much Drake has just put himself in the limelight and how many things he has done that have all been for worse, it really has looked like a circus on the OVO side of things, for Kendrick to just speak and move as little as possible and only when it is of the utmost essential importance. It also just counters and goes against the idea that to be a big star in this era of music, you really have to play into these influencer games and you have to be outside doing things that are unrelated to the music and that you have to be chasing all of these superficial things instead of just focusing in on your craft and making that the center of your offerings. And I think for Kendrick and Drake, when you pull it beyond hip-hop and just what they stand for and who they are affiliated with, when you break it down to this level in terms of exposure and how they move and how they conduct themselves in every regard and account, you really see more and more that this entire beef and back and forth has been one of the biggest clashes of ideologies and really anything that I have seen in a very long time. And honestly, at least for hip-hop, what's been proven 100% at this point is that one of those ideologies is just better for a rap star and it's better for the entire culture of the thing. Which I mean, when you break down what that means, which for Kendrick, it's just moving professionally, sticking to the music, putting everything into your craft, and never embarrassing yourself and the people that you are representing. That does seem pretty clear, especially when you compare it to Drake and everything that he has done on this run and everything he has stood for. And I just think with all of this and seeing the way that they have crashed out over Kendrick just smiling and enjoying his life now, I mean, we already knew Kendrick was on the greatest run, but this has just solidified and made everything even better because beyond all of the music and everything around there to just see this lawsuit turn out the way it did. And now Kendrick Lamar is getting the win he has in this situation just because hip-hop has been preserved. And in retrospect now, Not Like Us is not just a diss track that won the biggest rap beef of all time, one against the most arrogant rapper maybe we have ever seen, but now it literally won in the courtroom as well. This is something that is genuinely historic and of course it's never happened in hip-hop, but there's really never been anything like it in any sort of a major musical or media-driven conflict ever. And what I also think one of the best parts about this is that now while Drake has made everything going on so intrinsic to the future of his music career as the Iceman album has been built around all of the garbage slop he's been trying to throw out. And you know honestly now that I think about it maybe Drake was just trying to drag this thing out to roll out the album and give it higher stakes and make it actually have any sort of meaning or value. Well, with that and with all the weird messages and episodes Drake was making as everything was surrounding the mystery of this situation that Drake was trying to tell us went on behind the scenes. I mean, for a lot of reasons, but just in terms of fan demand and what they could actually want from this, that Iceman album has all but melted if we're being real with ourselves. But meanwhile, for Kendrick Lamar, for him to stand as not just one of the highest beacons in music and hip-hop, but really just in the entire art and media and entertainment landscape with just the way he has moved throughout this entire thing, he has only increased the demand for his music and has only made people more excited for whatever he has next, which speaking of whatever Kendrick has next. But when you just think about the way that he has moved and navigated this entire thing and of course how he has never really spoken a word and aside from making fun of it at the Super Bowl a little bit and then also slightly alluding to it when he did some of the features with Playboi Carti. I mean Kendrick has really been silent about this thing and you know whenever that next Kendrick album drops whether he gives it a couple bars a song or he talks about it a lot more there is just so much Kendrick is going to have to pull from and really just talk about. And with that, I think another one of these lessons that these two ideologies that Kendrick and Drake have really shown off and that the Drake stans really just should take note of as they are crashing out over Kendrick just smiling and going to a gym. Well, is that this game is not just rewarding people based on how they move. But really, what we have learned from Kendrick is that the people who just hold in their lane and stand their ground and do the right thing are reaping the biggest rewards. And so really with this is we are looking at this pivotal point in hip-hop and we have seen Drake lose a lawsuit over a rap beef and make history once again. And we have a lot to see in terms of how he is going to continue to drag out this thing and embarrass himself there. Well, ultimately these losers can complain and they could cry all they want and they could do whatever to just try and take down winners but only push themselves further into delusion. But you know what? It's over. You are done. And as Kendrick Lamar has hinted and told us at every step along his all-time run, well, from starting off the Not Like Us video with the courthouse, which definitely was telling us that Kendrick knew this was always going to go this way, to Kendrick telling us when he announced the Super Bowl, there are no round twos and there is only one chance to win the championship. Well, overall for everybody on OVO's side, I just got to tell you this and then I'm walking away. It's over. And so that's what's going on today. Kendrick Lamar is just living his life and having a good time. And of course, the Drake stans just can't handle that. And so can't Drake. Listen, let me know your thoughts on this entire situation and what do you think is going to happen next as these sides are figuring everything out. And if you made it to this point in the video, I just want to say thank you. It really does mean a lot. And if you have not already, leave a like and subscribe even though I'm sure you are, but it really does help me out so much. And I can't thank you enough for your support. Now, as we are in such an interesting and pivotal time in hip-hop, and it feels like a lot is changing right before our own eyes right now, if you want to see how Drake just reacted to losing this lawsuit already, and it honestly gets more pathetic when you break it down and see how his entire strategy and just demeanor in general has been broken to a level that it has never been broken before. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day and check out the suggested video.